Uche had always believed in hard work and ambition. As a final-year student at Greenleaf University, she spent long hours buried in her textbooks, eager to finish her degree and start a new chapter of her life. The weight of the future pressed on her shoulders. After graduation, she needed a job, an opportunity to prove herself, and maybe even the chance to start a new life abroad. Her parents, humble farmers, had sacrificed so much to get her this far. She owed it to them to make it count. Uche and her friends gathered in the university courtyard to unwind that evening. The exams were over, and they were discussing the next steps. Some were planning to return home, others were excited about job prospects. But Uche had no idea what the future held for her. As they talked and laughed, a tall man approached their group. He was impeccably dressed, his presence commanding immediate attention. His gaze lingered on Uche for a moment longer than the others, and she felt a brief flutter in her chest. "Good evening," he said, his voice smooth, almost rehearsed. "I'm Nkem. I've been hearing a lot about you, Uche. Your academic reputation precedes you." Uche raised an eyebrow, a bit taken aback. "Oh? And what exactly have you heard?" she asked, curious but cautious. "That you are first-class material. I admire that." Nkem smiled, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'm actually in a position to help someone like you. You see, I'm part of a consultancy that helps top graduates find opportunities abroad, whether it's jobs, further studies, or even sponsorships for relocation." Uche paused, feeling a mix of interest and skepticism. There was something too smooth about his offer. It sounded too perfect. But then, this is all she has ever wanted: a chance to leave Nigeria, to build a career that wasn't bound by the limitations of her small village. Her friends, eager for gossip and the moment's excitement, urged her to speak with him. "Go ahead, Uche," one of them nudged. "You've been talking about moving abroad forever." Uche hesitated for a moment longer. "All right," she said slowly, standing up. "But I'm not looking for any gimmicks. If you're serious, let's talk." Nkem's smile widened, and he led her away from the group, toward a quieter corner of the campus. "I can tell you've been working hard," Nkem started. "Your university experience will open doors for you, but the right connections, real opportunities, are what make the difference. I've seen too many students graduate and end up settling for less than they deserve. That does not have to be your story." "And how exactly do you plan on helping me?" she asked, her tone more curious than suspicious now. "Simple," Nkem replied. "I know people, lots of people. I can introduce you to companies looking for someone with your skills. I can get your foot in the door, and if you're open to it, I can even set you up with interviews abroad. Your qualifications and drive are exactly what they're looking for. But you'll need to take the first step, and trust me, you won't regret it." Uche's heart raced, and Nkem's words felt like an answer to everything she had hoped for, everything she had worked for. "All right," she said, her voice steady. "I'll give it a try. What do I need to do?" Nkem's eyes gleamed with approval. "Meet me tomorrow, Uche. I'll show you how to take the first step." As they parted ways, Uche's mind swirled with possibilities. She walked back to her friends, the excitement and the fear mingling in her chest. The next day, Uche couldn't shake the feeling of doubt that lingered in her mind. The promise Nkem had made was irresistible. But as she stood at the edge of the university courtyard, waiting for him, she couldn't help but wonder, was this too good to be true? She spotted Nkem standing by one of the university's stone benches, dressed in his usual immaculate suit. He looked like a successful businessman. Uche walked toward him, her mind racing. "Uche, I'm glad you came." Nkem greeted her warmly as she approached. "I'm curious about what this is all about," Uche replied. "I'm sure you are," Nkem said, gesturing toward a nearby coffee shop. "Let's sit down and talk." They sat by a window that overlooked the university's bustling main street, the sound of students laughing and chatting outside barely audible. "I understand the struggle of trying to find your feet after graduation. You have worked hard, and there are a lot of opportunities available out there. I'm offering you something that most people would never get." Uche took a breath, her curiosity piqued. "What exactly do you mean?" "Connection with the right people," Nkem said smoothly. "I have clients abroad who are always looking for bright young people. It's not about luck, Uche. It's about knowing the right people and having access to those opportunities. Uche looked down at her coffee cup, feeling a little overwhelmed. I've always wanted an opportunity to relocate, legally of course, but I don't know how to even begin, Uche admitted, her voice softening. It's all so complicated, Nkem nodded thoughtfully. That's exactly why I'm here. All I ask is that you give me your commitment. Uche raised an eyebrow. What kind of commitment are we talking about? All you have to do is commit to working with me exclusively for a while. Let me make the calls and introduce you to the right people. In exchange, I'll take care of everything else, the interviews, the paperwork, the recommendations. We'll set you up with the perfect opportunity. And you will have to sign this document too, Nkem answered, bringing out a 3-page document and placing it in front of her. I'll do it, Uche said, glancing through the papers and signing it. The following days passed in a blur. Every morning she walked to campus with a quiet sense of excitement, her mind racing with the possibilities. Nkem had called a few times to check in, always polite, always reassuring. He seemed to have everything under control, but the more time passed, the more Uche began to feel a creeping sense of unease. One evening, Nkem invited her to meet him at a high-end restaurant in the city. It was one of those places where the air smelled of expensive perfumes, and the waiters greeted you with a practiced smile, their eyes scanning you to make sure you belonged. You look stunning, Uche, Nkem said, his voice warm as he stood to greet her at their table. His eyes scanned her from head to toe, and for a brief moment, Uche felt uneasy under his gaze. I'm glad to tell you that everything is moving forward, Uche smiled. That's good news. I'm ready whenever you need me, she said, though the words didn't feel as convincing as she hoped. They sat down, and the conversation shifted from casual pleasantries to more serious matters. Nkem spoke in detail about the companies he was in contact with and the doors he was opening for her. He mentioned a few names she didn't recognize, but his confidence made her believe that they were the kind of people who could help her break free from her current life. Everything seemed like it was falling into place, but Uche still couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than he was letting on. After they finished dinner, Nkem suggested they take a walk through the city. Nkem led her to an old, secluded part of town. There's something you need to see. They arrived at a building that looked out of place in the modern city, old, forgotten, with a dim light flickering in the window. Uche stopped in her tracks, an uncomfortable feeling crawling up her spine. This isn't part of the plan, is it? Nkem turned to her with a soft smile. Oh, it is. The building is owned by one of my clients, and we often use it for our business meetings. Uche suddenly faked a cough. There was no way she was going into that building. I don't feel too well. I should head home, she said, as she immediately turned around, heading back in the direction of the university, her mind racing as she walked. Uche couldn't sleep that night. Her mind was a whirlwind of confusion and fear, replaying the events of the evening. The next morning, Uche avoided Nkem's calls. She had tried to convince herself that she was overthinking things, but she could not shake the feeling of unease. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart raced, her hands shaking as she glanced at the screen, half expecting Nkem's name to appear. One afternoon, as she sat in the library trying to focus on her final thesis work, she saw Nkem standing in the doorway. He had been waiting for her, and when their eyes met, Uche felt a chill run down her spine. Uche, you have been avoiding my calls. We need to talk, he said. I don't think I am comfortable continuing with our arrangement, Uche told him. Nkem's smile never faltered. I have been honest with you, Uche. You already agreed to commit to this. I'm afraid it's too late for you to walk away. You're already in, Uche. You can't back out now. The people I deal with don't like to be kept waiting. If you don't do what you're told, the opportunities I've promised you, everything you've worked for, will disappear, and so will you. Uche took a step back, feeling cornered. What do you want from me? She demanded, her voice breaking. What are you asking me to do? Nkem smiled. You'll find out soon enough. Just remember, you asked for this. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Uche standing in the middle of the library, her heart racing. That night, Uche sat alone in her room, her phone glowing beside her, waiting for the next call, the next message. But it wasn't just the fear of Nkem that kept her up. It was the knowledge that she had willingly walked into this trap. And as she lay there, staring at the ceiling, she realized the truth. Nkem wasn't offering her a way out. He was offering her a way in. Uche sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the message from Nkem. The details for the meeting were clear, an address and a time. All she had wanted was to find a stable job and a better future for herself and her parents. But now, as she prepared to meet the men Nkem had promised would help her, she wasn't sure of anything anymore. The address was an upscale restaurant, and Nkem appeared to greet her as she arrived. "Who exactly am I meeting?" Uche asked, trying to mask her nerves. Nkem led her toward a small private room at the back of the restaurant. Her heart was racing, but she did not show it. Inside the room, Uche was greeted by a group of 5 men and a woman. They looked sophisticated but had an unsettling aura. One of the men, older than the rest, stepped forward. "We've been waiting for you, Uche," he said, his voice slow and deliberate. "You've shown potential, and now we offer you a future. We will give you everything, wealth, success, power, but it comes with a price." "What do you want from me?" Uche demanded, her voice sharp, her hands trembling. "I just wanted a future, not this." The old man stepped forward again, his movements slow and deliberate. "You already signed up for this, Uche. You are ours now," he said. Uche's breath caught in her throat. Nkem was not just offering a future abroad, a job, or a new life. He was inviting her into their cult, and she had foolishly signed the document without thinking. She thought he was just an agent, a consultant, like he had introduced himself that first day. Now she had no idea what they did or what she had been roped into. She needed to find a way out. She turned on her heel and ran. But before she could reach the door, a strong hand grabbed her wrist, pulling her back into the room. Panic overwhelmed her. This was not the life she wanted. She just wanted a job, an opportunity to relocate abroad and to take care of her parents. All she wanted was a normal life. "I don't belong to you," Uche screamed. But as the men closed in, the last thing Uche saw was Nkem's smile.